Behold, the world. It's got a lot of problems, folks. Not good. But somewhere in the world, something is going right. For you see, in the ongoing war on Ukraine, Russia has but a few lines through which it can supply its southern forces right around here. Namely, a bridge. A big, single bridge. The Crimean Bridge. If something were to happen to this bridge, Russia would lose its ability to resupply forces easily through Crimea. And the southern regions of Ukraine would be Ukraine's for the taking. Hypothetically. Update. A second plane has hit the Crimean Bridge. It's out of commission, folks. It's not good. Not good at all. Look at that. Woo! Now, details on this are still a bit sparse, okay? This is a video captured by a security camera. Let's see what it shows. КамАЗ, Ларгус. При заезде, получается. На сторону Керчи. Bright light warning. And now it's gone. КамАЗ, Ларгус. При заезде, получается. Pretty neat. Now, let's address a couple of things right off the bat. There are some people on Twitter, including quite disappointingly Rob Rousseau, who are claiming that this is an act of terrorism when bridges that act as military supply lines are literally the most clearly defined legitimate target for attacks possible. It's difficult to even imagine if attacks against bridges used as military supply lines are terrorism, then so were the Allied forces bombing German rail lines during World War II, then so was like every attack ever. If that's the case, then war and terrorism mean the exact same thing, and there's no such thing as like non-terrorism in a war, and that's very dumb. So no getting around that, you know. Attacking bridges is mean, though. That's true. Second of all, one of the ways in which the Russian apologists and Russia are saying this is terrorism is by claiming that the way the bridge was destroyed was through a truck bomb. Now, the method of the bridge's destruction doesn't matter, obviously. It's no more a terrorism if it was a truck bomb suicide attack than if it was a missile or some other method. However, I don't believe this was a truck bomb. I'm synthesizing some information that I've seen here, and I am no explosives expert, so please understand that I am only repeating stuff that I've seen people say more convincingly. I believe that bombs were placed at key support structures underneath the bridge, for a couple of reasons. First of all, if it was indeed a truck bomb, I feel like the flames from the explosion would have spread out more laterally. You would see more of it spread out across the bridge since the explosion was detonated on the surface of the bridge. However, it seemed to be largely structural, with a large flash, and then as it clears, you see that the truck was right here, but the fire only extends maybe a couple dozen feet beyond. I don't know if a missile would be able to hit with this degree of precision reliably. My personal guess is that bombs were placed on the bridge. That is my personal guess. It doesn't really matter. It is just a belief that I have. There's a video of a missile hitting it. I've seen people disputing the missile thing. Again, you know, it doesn't really matter. Just my personal opinion. Got kablamoed. Got babangoed. The bridge is not completely out of operation. Apparently, there are still people driving across the... not that part, obviously. Videos of missiles hitting are super fake. That is my opinion. We know it was not a truck bomb. Here's a full thread with analysis. Again, it doesn't really matter, but here we go. Initial indications that the Kerch Bridge was hit by a truck bomb IED. Damage to the bridge seems overall consistent with this. Oh my god, all the Twitter videos now. But Vaush, with civilians involved, isn't this kind of terrorism? Please explain. I'm very dumb. No. Unfortunately, in war, civilians are going to get hurt. That's literally unavoidable. It may have been the case that, like, thousands of years ago, armies would just meet in a field, and they would sort of duke it out there, and then whoever won gets to rape all the women in all the nearby villages, but that's just not how war works anymore. If that was the case, then again, like, every military action would be terrorism now, because, you know, I think we would call it terrorism if it was a deliberate attack on a civilian population that didn't serve any strategic... Oh god, this is complicated. Okay, so basically in World War II, there were some Western generals who were like, hey, you know how we distinguish between civilian and military targets? Well, since civilians work to support the economy that builds the army, wouldn't that mean that actually all civilians are military targets? And then we invented the concept of strategic bombing, which is where we say that we didn't miss any military targets because there are no non-military targets. We did that, and it was bad when we did that. Then we nuked Tokyo. No, wait, not Tokyo. Japan, twice. Wasn't great. Shouldn't have done that. Bad idea. We killed a lot of people. Not great. I don't like that. However, bombing a bridge that is used for military resupply is not that. You know, it is a direct military target directly. Even if civilians are hurt, which is unfortunate, that is a thing that happens in war. Okay. The railings blown out in the video do indicate that the truck was the center of the explosion. There's not much damage visible on the roadway as the section directly below the truck is underwater. Damage to the section in red caused it to break in half. Let's be seeing the video run. Location of the blast also aided the blue section sliding off its support into the water. Man, look at all these videos. Woo! Did any civilians die? I think 3 did. Wacky. As for other theories, currently appears to be a wake appearing under the section. This can indicate a possible boat. Yeah, see, people said that a boat sped away right before it blew up. Why would it not be a false flag attack? There's no way Russia would bomb its own critical infrastructure for a false flag. It doesn't need casus belli. It already did the war. The war is already happening. The explosion. Oh, I see. This is a nerd thread for nerds. Nice try, Richard. But I'm illiterate. So anyway, the important part here is that it's on fire, and it's funny when things that belong to Russia are on fire. So, the ongoing conflict. The Kharkiv region has been effectively yoinked by the Ukrainians. Good job, Ukraine. And we have seen a similar, if somewhat slower, advance down here, east of Mykolaiv, northeast, I suppose, where the classic tactic of flank the Russians, push them back to the river, and then force them to abandon their vehicles and equipment and such. Yeah. Yes, the bridge can still be used, albeit in a limited capacity. However, this does open up the possibility of a new, even greater funny, which is that Russia attempts to run a line of tanks across the weakened supports, and that's when the bridge collapses entirely. And we just get to see a bunch of, like, like a convoy of tanks just sort of fall into the water. Very funny if that happened. But anyway, the destruction of the bridge, or its partial destruction, is obviously a big deal. Not just because it's a direct attack so far from the enemy lines, but also because this was one of the main routes of resupply for Russia's forces down here in the south. Without that, they have to come all the way over here, which is a lot more difficult. This is a contested area right here, running through Mariupol. A lot of it just depends on the quality of the roads and bridges. Another thing to keep in mind is that the roads and bridges near Mariupol are fucked. Because Mariupol has been the scene of some of the most intense fighting. Like, this whole area, like, there is not a clean path to bring convoys across, or at the very least, there aren't many. It's charred, it's chewed up, you know. Whereas Crimea, which has not seen direct fighting, had a relatively direct and straightforward resupply line. So, good stuff there. Very funny. Big boom. Great stuff. Hopefully, they can keep bombing it. Meanwhile, this entire month, Russia's been trying to take one town. It has not been going well for them. We'll bring up the deep state map just for completion's sake. I see, according to the deep state map, we have little Ukrainian piggies that have moved in quite a bit further to Kherson. I reckon it's probably a week or less before everything west of the river. Oh, the piggies are the Russians? Oh, sorry. Oh, right. I'm sorry. When I see piggies, I think Ukraine because of that stupid bouncing pig thing. They're orcs? My monitor is too big. How do I can't... I thought they were pigs. The bouncing pig thing. You know, the Ukraine pig, the Ukrainian hog. This looks like a pig to me. They are pigs? What bouncing pig thing? What? Guys. That. We need that as an emote? Yeah, it'd be pretty good. Michael Tracy's trying to compare the bombing of the Crimean Bridge 9/11. Well, the Russian defenders right now are trying to treat this as like some insane act of terrorism when bombing bridges that are used for military supply lines is the most accepted, ubiquitous, and unambiguously justified like attack on infrastructure you can do. You know? Like but they're like this is literally like the Holocaust, you know, of course, because they're very silly. At the end of the day, the real position of all these people, including Rob Rousseau, frustratingly enough, is just like Ukrainians need to lie down and like get raped or die. Like that's it. Like lie down, stop fighting, let Russia win, even though they're performing like shit. Give them the consolidation prize, give them the participation trophy. Lie down, let them rape you, let them kill you, let them take the land. Don't worry about it. Like that's the real position, you know. Did you say Evo Morales supporting Putin? Yeah, I saw. This shouldn't be surprising to any of you guys, by the way. Bolivia and Evo Morales have cozied up to Chinese and Russian hegemony for years. It's not new. It is of course unfortunate, you know. It is kind of remarkable, like the difference in the character between the Vietnam and Ukrainian-Russian conflict, where like Ukrainian soldiers are fighting on clear terms against an unambiguous threat invading them. They get to liberate villages. You know, like obviously it's still horrible, but you know, in terms of the terms of the conflict itself. Whereas the Vietnam War was just like, yeah, we have to contain the spread of communism by like defending South Vietnam, and also we have to like dump 8 trillion gallons of Agent Orange into the jungle and drop more bombs than we've ever dropped anywhere ever before. Most of our soldiers not want to be there. No, who the f would want to be there? The thing is that the Vietnam War was basically an internationalized civil war. Well, yeah, it was the Chinese supported Viet Cong against the yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of like Korea as well. We keep getting involved in other civil wars, which is probably not good. Probably shouldn't do that. Probably not great. The US came in because the French couldn't handle their colonies. Well, that definitely like helped, you know, like the sort of like colonial instinct to protect your priors. Do you think the Korean War was bad? I mean, yeah. The problem is like especially today we have to understand if you have a very clear set of goals that are military in nature, the United States military can do anything on earth. There's nothing we can't do. We're unstoppable. Nobody else even comes close. But the problem is like when it comes to nation building, like not just the clear military objective, but the nation building part. Like, okay, well, hearts and minds, that we can't do because nobody can do it. Nobody can really do that, The only, like, the only civilizations that have been good at that kind of like suppression of a domestic culture or domestic opposition or foreign opposition, like anything like that, have been empires. And you do it by conquering the land. But America, while we are an empire, we aren't looking to conquer Iraq or conquer Vietnam. If we wanted to do that, first of all, it'd be insane because they're on the other side of the world and you'd have to like send colonists over. It'd be a whole thing. But if you wanted to do that, then we would have engaged in the full scale of genocide and, mass murder that is entailed in such a project. And eventually, I assume this would end, it would finish, but there's not much of a middle ground. You can defeat an army on open ground just fine, and you can bomb a country into oblivion, but making a country agree with you rather than disagree with you is really difficult. Keep in mind that for Japan and for Germany, we had to occupy those countries, right? If all we had done was run in, destroy their militaries, then run out, I don't think that would have led to the same changes that their country saw afterwards, right? It took long-term occupation. The Constitution of Japan was rewritten, we had the Nuremberg trials. We spent decades and decades, like, essentially just occupying West Germany, and of course the Soviets, East Germany. Yes, denazification was unique and unfinished. We should have occupied Italy too. Well, we kind of did. Mussolini was a lot more unpopular towards the end of the war. They joined us towards the end of the conflict. To an extent. Yeah, to an extent. Maybe we could have done more. I don't know. Afghanistan was on its way to becoming a democracy, but it would have taken at least another decade. Nah, I disagree. I think the problem with Afghanistan is that there just wasn't a I guess it's like a material conditions thing, right? Like, this is going to sound very idealistic of me, but I feel like the people in a country need something to believe in for that country to go somewhere, right? Like, you can't form a democracy just by saying, okay, here's how voting works. This guy's the current leader. Vote in the next one in 4 years. Like, you need a proper civic society, and people need to believe in that civic society. It needs to be an institution that people get behind. And the problem in Afghanistan is that we never gave them a reason to believe in it. The leaders, the ANA, were horrendously corrupt and non-representative and were fairly incompetent at fighting off the Taliban. That's the thing. The Taliban, ISIS, they give people more to believe in than like your average, like, hyper-corrupt Middle Eastern pseudo-democracy that's propped up entirely by foreign powers. And because they give people better narratives about why they should support them, they get more support. And as long as that support exists, you never really have a democracy in these countries, which is why the ANA fell apart the moment we left. Um, yeah, democracy failed in Russia as well because we didn't give them anything to believe in. Why should a Russian believe in democracy or anything about modern liberal society, right? Like, why? The Soviet Union fell. Everything got way worse. Then the Western powers carved up and raped their country through shock doctrine. Uh, we never, like, really extended a hand to them. And then you've got Putin coming around saying, like, okay, well, yeah, those guys. Like, I'll give you guys a narrative. They do. You need a narrative. You need a story to believe in. Why did Germany move to fascism instead of socialism? I mean, that's incredibly complicated. A lot of people back in the 1920s did think that Germany was going to end up being socialist, though, right? I mean, like, um, the fight with the how am I forgetting her name? Rosen something, Luxembourg, yeah. The failed revolution. A lot of people thought that it was Germany that would go socialist. But the socialists were incompetent. Don't get me wrong, I like Luxembourg, but she was opposed to the attempted revolution. It was too early. And you cannot succeed in a democratic society with a socialist revolution unless you have you have the hand of the Social Democrats, which they didn't even attempt to go for, really. Like they got surprised when the Social Democrats, sort of sicked the far right on them, which of course they did. Maybe coming soon. Have you listened to the Iron Dice? Yeah. I used to agree with you in Afghanistan, thinking they'd revolution their way into a better world, but don't you find it more likely for them to turn to ISIS? Why roll the dice between Taliban and ISIS instead of just staying there? Because I think that as long as the West is attempting its nation building in the Middle East, ISIS and the Taliban will always exist, whereas ISIS and the Taliban have the ability to burn themselves out through their own internal contradictions, as Islamo-fascist societies are susceptible to the self-destructive tendencies of regular fascist societies. But as long as America is like meddling, as long as we're there, they have that story and they can tell it everywhere, right? Like not just in Afghanistan or Iraq or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, or Libya or Egypt or whatever. Like they can tell it everywhere in the whole Islamic world, that we're meddling. But if we don't meddle, I think we give them a little bit more, there's more cultural leeway for them to kind of fail on their own. It's not like people in the Middle East or North Africa like ISIS after all, but they get emboldened because you have these like lunatic, like suicidally um zealous or zealous uh you know is Islamic guys who get, at 14 you know they're given like a Cliff Notes version of Middle Eastern history and how the West fucked everything over, which we did. And it's like, oh, okay, well, how do we fix things? Well, of course, we get rid of all Western influence, which includes degeneracy, and like all Islamic revisionism and such. Though, of course, the ISIS people are themselves Islamic revisionists, but Vaush, don't those fascist societies destroy themselves after they destroy everyone else? Well, they didn't destroy everyone else before. We beat Germany. And I don't think the Taliban or ISIS are going to like conquer the Middle East or whatever. I just think that these are dialectical processes that have to be internally resolved. Remember that the dialectic, you have an idea that is, or a concept or a society or whatever, that is improved when the agitations between, different interpretations of this idea, thesis, counter thesis, they clash and they lead to a synthesis, a resolution. This is an internal process. If you try to impose a solution through external means, you kind of with the system, right? Um, you understand what I mean? Like, Af- w- Afghanistan must resolve its relationship with jihadism. But I do not think that's an answer the West can just go in and stamp on them. Like, guys, don't do that. Build hospitals, right? Like, of course, but we, us patronizing Westerners, we think they don't think of that, right? But if you're a member of the Taliban in Afghanistan, your first priority isn't building hospitals, right? In concept, your first priority is fighting Western hegemony because that's the root of like everything that's gone wrong in your society, right? Their top priority is keeping us from fucking with them, which is why if you look at internal recruitment with the Taliban or ISIS or Al Qaeda or all that, or the Mujahideen back in their day, what was the thing they kept repeating over and over and over and over again, right? It was overwhelmingly like, get these fucking imperialists out of our land every time. Like all the time, like, and that's the message that they keep broadcasting, like get these fuckers out of here. And as long as we intervene, I think this is a compelling message. This is not to say the Taliban have not done monstrous things in Afghanistan and that I don't feel bad about it. I just feel like this isn't a problem we're helping with. We're just like we're doing like the civ building equivalent of preventing a wound from healing by like using hot glue guns, right? Like, look, the bleeding has stopped, but like none of the processes of healing are actually like starting. If anything, it's sort of just like rotting under the glue. Um, what about NGOs? NGOs can potentially have a beneficial impact, but NGOs have also historically been a vehicle for Western imperialism for a long time. So, it's something worth being concerned over from their perspective. I don't know, Zoth. How many decades are we talking about? Is it centuries? How many generations of women will be subjected to terrible treatment? I don't know why you're asking as though like America could just hit a button and fix it, you know? I don't know. There are literally like billions of women all around the world who are subjected to terrible treatment all the time. I don't know. I'm telling you, I don't think our presence, like you're the way you phrase this, it's like, you know, how long will our abstemiousness inflict misery upon them? Well, I don't think it is. I think that our absence there is a necessary part of resolving these issues, in my opinion. But nobody knows the answer for sure. It's just my opinion. Yeah, and also like it's that's true as well. It's not like when we were in Afghanistan, like it was all liberal feminism over there, right? We occupied major cities, but there were still plenty of tribal villages where women were treated pretty shit. Um, like most of the improvements that we saw to the living conditions of women were in the areas we directly occupy. But should we just do that for all of Africa then? You know, how long will the people of Burkina Faso suffer if only we occupied all their cities? I mean, we can't solve problems this way, right?